I would say that it's not built in isolation. Having siloed advice can really, it can make an impact on the plan. So, looking for a collaborative environment. And then I told you I was going to sing this to the end, and that's communication. So, having those discussions and, just being brave in that and, take your time and be gentle with yourself as well.
Welcome to Real Money, Real Life, the podcast where we get real about money and the messy human stuff that comes with it. I'm Linda Grizely, financial educator and your Me Money guide to financial clarity. Each week, we dive into financial concepts and money strategies, but we always tie it back to real life, emotions, mindset, and how money actually shows up day to day. If you're ready for practical tools, mindset shifts, and honest conversations that meet you where you are, not where the world thinks you should be, you're in the right place. Because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you use it. No judgment, no lectures, and definitely no putting yourself last.
Hello, everyone. If you're listening, you are one of the real ones, the ones who know wealth isn't just about money. It's about meaning, connection, and creating something that lasts. Today, we're talking about wealth as more than just dollars in the bank. My guest helps families navigate not only their money, but also the clarity and communication needed to keep generations aligned. We'll explore how to design a financial life that's about both security and legacy so your family can thrive together, not just financially, but in values and vision. Our guest today is Penny DiGiovanna. She's the founder and family wealth strategist at Financial Planning by Design, a boutique virtual family office. She guides families with complex financial lives through the Family Wealth Blueprint. Her belief centers on wealth being about more than money. It's about creating clarity and continuity so the family stays aligned across generations. Welcome, Penny.
Thank you, Linda. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So I want to hear about your story about how you started. But first, I want to be sure that we understand what a family office is, because some of our listeners might not know what that is. So let's start with, what is a family office?
Sure. So I run what they call a virtual family office. So it's primarily virtual. But the family office component for my firm really just involves, uh, we sit kind of in the middle of a client's life. I call it the financial architect. So it's really important for us to be able to, we get to really know our clients very well and all the details of their life. So the virtual family office allows us to loop in all the different advisors that our clients have. For example, most of our clients have a CPA, they have a estate planning attorney, maybe a business attorney. Many have real estate professionals. And what we saw was there's a lot of siloed advisors. So the advisors were there, but they weren't speaking to each other. So the virtual family office puts us kind of in the middle as the advocate for our clients to connect all the different professional advisors that they have to be sure that everything's connected and that there are no gaps. Because many times attorneys are giving great advice, CPAs are giving great tax advice, but if they're not talking to each other, the advice might contradict or it might just not take the full picture into consideration. So that's what our virtual family office looks like. And there are some other versions of family offices, but for the most part, that's what you would see if you worked with us.
Oh, thanks for explaining that. So, okay, now so tell us your story about what led you to found Financial Planning by Design.
Okay, yeah. So I came from the traditional wealth management, financial advisory world, spent roughly a decade now in that industry. And, there are some things that I saw that really just kind of went against my belief system. Um, Traditionally in the industry, not everyone, but I was seeing a lot of just more about the money and the products and just leaving out the people piece many times. And I really wanted to deliver a different type of experience for clients, one that started more with people, the vision, the values of that personal family, and then connecting the investments and the planning subjects, the more technical, but first starting in that planning space and then keeping it small, boutique, so I could really create that personalized experience where, it's quality over quantity, so to speak. So that was really what led me to start my own firm, just, from a broad aspect.
Yeah, that makes sense. Part of my story is about the things that I saw and the different positions that I held through my financial services career journey and the different things that I saw happening and the disconnect that I had with my values with that too. So I can completely relate to that as well. You said you believe wealth is about more than money. Tell me more about that statement.
Sure. So my belief is that money is the tool, the resource that's used, but when you really drill down about what's important to people about money, it's typically not having a large account or X amount of dollars. You hear stories about, I want to make sure my family's protected, or I want to sleep better at night, or I want to make an impact in my community. So it really goes beyond just that surface level. And we really talk through that. We call it, values, vision, conversation, just to really get to understand the clients, get to understand their priorities. And for some people, it may be, I want X amount of dollars, but almost always, if you drill down on that, there's a why behind that. So that's why I say it's really about people first, and then we utilize the money and the technical skills that we have to pair with what's important to that particular family.
And I think that's important too, because everybody doesn't fit into a box. Everybody's situation is so completely unique to them. So really understanding what makes them tick and what they value is great. So we talked about the that you guide them with the family wealth blueprint. So tell me what that is and how it helps the families that you work with.
Yeah, so it's more or less a framework that we follow. So, we named financial planning by design for a reason, because we believe in intentionality and doing things um, with purpose. So the family wealth blueprint is really just that. It's a framework to guide clients through the process, but it's also very personalized. So, it's, I would say, a structure, a framework, and it helps really clients understand, again, like what's important. We guide them through those conversations, and then we build out the plan around that. We look for gaps and risks because, once we know where the priorities are, many times we see from that conversation where we can help clients protect their wealth or their family, or whatever it is. So it's really a guided framework process, but involved in it is the personalization based on the priorities of that particular family.
Do you have any examples you can share about how, like maybe the clarity of going through that shifted their direction?
Sure. Yeah, we deal with a lot of transitions, so family transitions. Um, Blended family is a great example. So, Many times when we've worked with blended families, there's going through the conversations. A lot of times they don't realize that if things aren't structured from, say, an estate planning perspective, that they could actually be disinheriting their adult children from previous marriage. Just we've seen that firsthand, where if things aren't structured um, from the legal aspect and not framed up properly, it can actually lead to unintended consequences both now and in the future. And we're not attorneys, so we don't draft documents and we don't give legal advice, but we can help these families like decide and talk through and think through what they want for their families, now and in the future. So we've done that with a lot of clients in those blended families, and it really makes a big difference once they understand, what their final outcome is that they're looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the blended families always are tough because there's so many different ways that those can be structured too. And again, every family is so unique, especially in those blended families, because the different ways that they want things to happen and how they're divided, it can be, there's a lot of different ways it could go. What other types of problems do you see in families trying to align across generations?
Well, family dynamics are huge, especially if you have like a family business. We see that a lot where maybe the founder has, started this business and they've spent all these years growing it and it's become so much a part of their identity. And then it's time maybe to start thinking about that next generation coming into the business, or even maybe it is just a succession plan outside of the family. But that the ego, the dynamics of, yeah, and I understand now starting my own business what it's like to, pour your heart and soul into things, and then at some point you have to come to the realization that maybe it's time to let that next generation come in. And those are very delicate conversations, and there's the technical aspect, but I think that just the personal dynamics that go into that, and conversations about like what are the next steps for that person when they are no longer working day to day in that business and the operation. So there's that. And then also like preparing that next generation so they feel confident and comfortable with moving into the leadership roles. So those are ways that really just help get the family positioned. And the sooner it's done, the better. So it's not, a crisis or a fire drill. It's something that's planned and again, intentional and created through communication.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And especially with a business, it's hard because sometimes in a family you have children that are involved in the business, and then sometimes you have others that are not. And so, what happens to the business and planning, and how do you make that equal between the ones that are involved and the ones that aren't involved, or is it not equal? And just having those real hard conversations about that. Is there a
Mhm.
way, and not even just in talking about people that are business owners, but is there a way that you get families to start conversations about values, not just the money, in your planning, so that you're going cross generationally?
Yes. One of the first things we do when clients come on board to our family, we'll call it, is go through a vision and values conversation. So we actually facilitate those conversations um, and help with just asking questions and listening, and then helping them frame that up. So it's really about listening and asking those hard questions, and that is part of that family wealth blueprint framework. And then once we establish that, we can add in things like guided family meetings with the next generation leaders, and we can add in things like education if it's even for like grandkids, younger generations, just some, you know, um, firm foundations for them. So we really, it's really guided by what makes sense for that family, but it starts with, really those deep conversations, and us just facilitating in a way that feels safe and comfortable for clients to open up.
When you're talking to your clients, are they usually the parents? Are they usually the children, the adult children that would be, who are you usually talking to?
It depends. I find in our firm we really are more working these days with the inheritors, so that second generation. And that is a different conversation than working with the, let's say, the matriarchs or the patriarchs of the family. So when it's with that second generation, those conversations look a little bit more around, inheritance, and, how do we now frame up what's important to us, because we've moved now into that position. And then, maybe it's their kids, and say they're in the teenage years, and how can we start to frame up like our family's values and what we want to see them, start to get involved with these things at a different level, obviously based on the different ages. But inheritance is a big one. We also deal with divorce and blended families a lot. So that typically is, again, kind of that second generation, but it can vary at times.
So we know that there are many different perspectives on finances and priorities in people's lives. And there's almost always I don't want to call it conflict, but differences in the perspective and the priority between generations. So how do you help
Yes.
them bridge that? How do you open up that conversation?
Well, I think, first of all, I frame it as that's a positive, because different perspectives bring different ideas to the table. So just trying to get um, everyone open to that and letting everyone have a voice that feels respected. Obviously, in the frameworks, there's going to be, the ones that are the decision makers, but having everybody's voice heard goes a long way. So it's really, we can't force that, but we really encourage those open dialogues. I mean, I come from my degrees in communication, so I'm a big believer in just having those guided conversations. And, that's where we really come in with strategy and looking at, like how how can we frame this in a way that's comfortable to each generation? And usually that has to start at the top generation, right? So once they embrace the thought that, maybe the people that are 40 and 50, even though they're still our kids, they have some valuable things to lend to the conversation, right? Parents tend to always think of their kids as kids, no matter what age they are. But just being open and respectful and letting everyone have a voice. And, ultimately, we have the frameworks that help to guide these things. So it's delicate. It's definitely, family dynamics is a very interesting subject to be involved in.
It is. And I know from, experience and case study and other stories that I've heard that it's hard to keep continuity across generations, right? It's
Sure.
hard to keep grandparents and then parents and grandchildren all on the same having the same values. And you always heard the what is the phrase? Is it bootstraps to bootstraps or something like that. Did I
Short
say it
sleeves
right?
to short sleeves in three
I
generations. Yeah, yeah.
knew I was saying it right.
Statistically, yeah, 70% of successions fail after three generations, and you could see why, because the first generation typically is the one with the short sleeves. They're working, they're building it. The next generation kind of sometimes just profits from that labor, and then the third generation is back to labor. That's the proverb that you were referencing. But we strongly feel that communication and having those frameworks are what helps families move beyond that proverb that's not so happy ending. Um, and, again, it's all guided, so there's structure to it. We do, as the virtual family office, we then loop in the attorneys and the tax advisors to make sure that it's all structured in a way that it's tight, and that these other professionals have had their involvement and make sure that it's done properly. But family dynamics are tough, and you can't account for everything. But again, open communication is. I'm going to continue to sing that to the end.
Yeah, that's the key. Communication, open communication, and keeping an open mind too, right? It's
Yeah.
because you can have open communication, but if somebody's got a closed mind, that's not really open communication, I guess, right?
True, true. And, it
Yeah.
boils down to, do you want it to be successful or not? And that's
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard questions like that. We have to sometimes get into frank discussions and draw out what the real issue is. And, again, we bring in professionals if we need to bring in counselors and um, different people to help guide these things, mediation. We do all of that, and we help coordinate it for the families.
Oh, that's a lot. You're adding in, first of all, the other professionals, which is, they're like you said, their accountant, their lawyer, all those other people, but you actually can bring in mediators and counselors to help work through some of the emotional and personality things that might be conflicting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
because, you know, over the years, I've gained a breadth of knowledge in different areas just because of the seats that I've sat in. But no one person really can deliver all of those things. So being that virtual family office, again, we have the ability to either work with the clients, advisors, and people that they have on their trusted list, or we can help vet what's the best fit for them. So that is part of that virtual family office component.
Okay. Mindset and internal obstacles. I always want to go there because that's part of the idea between real money and real life is like real life is
Sure.
there are all these mindsets and beliefs and things that hold us back. So tell me what the common ones are that you see with the type of clients that you work with.
Oh gosh. Well, when it comes to, again, like the business owners, the common one is just kind of letting go of ego, and just, I think you hit on it too. It's like being open, and then being open to what's your next step, because so many times those business owners are just like, so they've been so involved in this business, and letting that go and thinking like, what is my day going to look like from here on out? So even helping them kind of frame up what the next steps might be. And another mindset trap in that area too is sometimes they want to jump right back into starting another business because that's their comfort zone. And maybe that's a good idea, but um, maybe it's take a breath and let's kind of talk through like what the next steps could look like for you. And on a similar note, when we're dealing with family transitions like divorce and second marriage, it's that same, or widows, it's that same thing. Like, let's take a breath and, kind of deal with what we have to deal with today, and then start to think of, what is it that you want that next uh, season of life to look like. And, it's really, we navigate a lot of difficult conversations, but just helping people, see that there's hope, especially when it comes to those transitions. Like, there's hope, there is a future ahead, and, you know, we can plan for it as much as possible, but, just try to be supportive and know that they are supported, and there's hope.
Yeah. Okay. Fear of conflict and with money. I know, money is one of the most stressful things, and there can be conflict over it. And also, talking about planning is also stressful and fearful, because you're talking about people passing, and you're trying to plan for, the unexpected, things like that. And how do you help families when discussing across generations? How do you help them overcome that fear of talking about it?
I think we really try and make the experience one that's comfortable, and avoid jargon and heavy technical language, because, I've heard people say that going to a financial advisor can be worse than going to the dentist. So, that's one of the things we want to change and make it a comfortable situation. And, it is uncomfortable to have these discussions, but, just knowing they're not alone, that we're there to support them, help them, and be patient. We're going to have to talk about some hard subjects. And, it's easy for me and, you, Linda, sitting in our chair, because we've been through these discussions, and some of us have lived through these situations as well. But just, trying to honor and respect the person, and not, you know, having the hard conversations, but doing it in a way that's honoring, respectful, and patient. Sometimes it's, these vision and values conversations, maybe we need to have four of them, because, somebody's just needs some time. And, not being afraid to see people being vulnerable, like being vulnerable myself to them, and, allowing them to do that too. I've cried with people, and I've shared my story with people, and, so I think it just boils down to just having compassion, but, also needing to realize that you're there for a certain job, and to help them with a certain task as well. So it's balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so if there was a belief or pressure that you wanted to let people they could let go of, what would it be?
I think it comes back to that question you just asked. And,
Okay.
fear is often built up in our own minds. I know I do it too. But making small steps, and even if it's just opening up the dialogue with a family member that you feel comfortable with, and asking, small steps, small questions, like, what does, our money mean to you? How do you see, um, the future based on the plan that we have? Like, just having those simple questions. It's building that muscle memory, I guess, somewhat, of just being comfortable with that. And then, reach out. There's a lot of supportive professionals out there, can just help you and guide you, both online and in person.
Yeah, I agree. What is one step that a family can take this week to strengthen their financial clarity?
I would say, just start thinking and really maybe pull out a piece of paper or a journal and start really opening up to yourself about what does money mean to you? Like, what kind of impact do you want to see it make on your life and on others' lives? So just start the dialogue with yourself.
Great advice. And what is a big takeaway you would want listeners to remember about family wealth?
I would say that it's not built in isolation. Having siloed advice can really, it can make an impact on the plan. So, looking for a collaborative environment. And then I told you I was going to sing this to the end, and that's communication. So having those discussions and, just being brave in that and, take your time and be gentle with yourself as well.
Love that. All right. So tell us who needs to find you. Who are the families that you serve?
Yeah, so families that are dealing with big transitions like business succession, um, big real estate transitions, inheritance, divorce, blended families. Those are the areas where we can really make an impact for people. And I think that would be, a great spot for us to leave it. Those with complex family dynamics.
Okay, great. And how can they find you? What's the best way? What's the best place for them to find you?
You can find us online at financialplanningbydesign.com. You can reach out, email Penny at financialplanningbydesign.com. And, we can also find us on LinkedIn as well, Penny DiGiovanna. And if you can get that last name right, you get bonus points.
All right, I'll be sure to put the links in the description too.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining me today, Penny. It's been a great talk. I appreciate you joining.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for anyone that's still listening, thank you for sticking around. You're one of the real ones, the ones that matter. And I have a nugget for you from this episode. I think family wealth is more than what you pass down in dollars, it's what you pass down in trust, values, and clarity. And if you are looking for a space for real talk, fresh starts, and women who are done putting themselves last, I've created a free community for you to join me. And you can visit my website, lindagriz.com, to find that free community. So thanks so much, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Real Money, Real Life. Want to see what's blocking you from financial confidence or discover your money personality? Head to the resources page at lindagriz.com for our free quizzes. That's LINDAGRIZ.com/resources. If you're loving what you're learning, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. I'm your Me Money Guide to Financial Clarity, Linda Grizely, and I'll catch you next time as we talk more real money, real life, because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you spend it. The content shared here is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not financial, tax, legal, or planning advice and does not constitute therapy or mental health counseling. Please consult an actively licensed and qualified professional for advice or help specific to your situation.